I'd now like to introduce our guest speaker for today's event. That is Christopher Trummer, CEO of Solaris Therapeutics. Chris is both the CEO and a co-founder of Solaris Therapeutics. He studied molecular biology, biotechnology, and business informatics at the Technical University in Graz. And he has a background in the pharma industry, having worked for Fresenius, Innofor, as well as for an AI enzyme discovery company. Chris, welcome. Very happy to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me loud and clear here. I will start sharing my screen now. And I hope that this is working. So yeah, first I would actually like to thank you, Andre, and the whole team of Deep Pharma Intelligence Group. It's really a pleasure to give you some insights about, on the one hand, Solaris Therapeutics, of course, and also about the current situation in AI in the early stage drug discovery, and also on different R&D collaborations. So yeah, let's keep the overview about our company really short and sweet, so that we can jump in to like the other topics straight away. So Solaris was founded actually in 2020 and is based in Austria, in Vienna, and also Graz, where there is our headquarter. The team consists of subject matter experts in like almost all the different relevant areas one can think of, such as medicinal chemistry, machine learning, theoretical physics, biotech, and so on and so forth. So we're also currently hiring. So if you're an ML engineer in that area, please go through our vacancies and do not hesitate to contact us or myself anytime. I would be happy. Yeah, I guess you are all familiar with the most crucial problems in the early stage drug discovery that are depicted here. Of course, it's about always the costs and the times, and as well as about the 80% of the currently so-called undruggable targets. Typically, it takes around $2.5 billion and a lead time of around 15 years for a drug to hit actually the market, right? That's just really insane, and we're really in the need to overcome that kind of bottleneck. For everyone here in the audience who is like not familiar with the term undruggable targets, I would be happy to introduce that to you. So these are, for instance, pathogenic proteins that do not possess a pronounced cavity and that are really hard to drug with state-of-the-art therapeutics. Especially AI tries to tackle these problems and also the undruggable targets. And there's plenty of different options one can go with. As most of the participants already know, I guess, there's also different machine learning approaches that are trying to overcome these challenges, such as supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning, and so on. And the same, of course, applies for artificial neural networks and deep neural networks. And choosing one of, like these kind of tool sets is in the end the most important task in overcoming any data-driven challenge. Recently, there's also been many discussions about finding the right molecular representation. For instance, Alan Aspuro-Guzik, who is a professor at the University of Toronto, and his group suggested a more sophisticated representation, overcoming the deficiencies of so-called SMILE strings with so-called selfies. We here at Solaris focus on graph representation learning, or sometimes also called geometric deep learning, which is also an upcoming area of interest for many different machine learning researchers in the pharmaceutical industry. And then there's also the generalizability and the benchmarks for R&D collaborations between specialists on the one hand that are dealing with AI, and on the other hand, the big pharma players. There's always the need to prove that the AI adds something to the value chain of the big pharma players. Many providers of such solutions are just focusing on really specific problems. As the data itself, I think that was mentioned already kind of several times here, itself is really a treasure. And building a generalizable deep learning model can like only be done by paying some kind of costs. And it's also important to benchmark models against frameworks that are evaluating machine learning approaches, such as the therapeutic data commons that is depicted here, and also the molecular sets, also called MOSAs, from Alex Saveronkov and In Silico Medicine. Yeah, since pharma R&D and computational chemistry are also, of course, evolving all the time, it is important for machine learning to also participate on all of these different developments. One example, for instance, is PROTACs, which are currently one of the hottest topics in the pharmaceutical industry. And for everyone who is not yet familiar with PROTACs, I would like to also introduce you to those. As I stated, these are like an emerging class of therapeutics able to change the targets from so-called undruggable to at least degradable. And PROTACs, they do not require an active site cavity. They can really grab any nuke, any cranny crevice, as they do not sit directly on the pocket itself. And we see potential for them to actually surpass the two hottest drug development areas of all time, which are, of course, the protein kinase inhibitors on the one hand, and also the monoclonal antibodies on the other hand. And if you're a part of a pharma company that is actually dealing with PROTACs and are currently seeking for R&D collaborations in that area, I would be really happy to connect with you after this webinar, of course. Yeah, the market for AI in pharma, which was also mentioned previously, is currently really exploding. And I'm sure that in 2030, latest, every drug that hits the market will have been developed by AI, and with means of AI. So this means that big pharma will be more kind of a manufacturer and also like a distributor in the future, I believe at least. And rising costs and falling sales will further help like young companies such as us to establish themselves in that area for sure. Yeah, here you can see some of the most prominent risks for the usage of AI in life sciences, I guess. While doing business development, at least we have seen that still many pharma scientists tend to use just simple decision trees and explainable AI, so to say, instead of like black box approaches such as deep learning. And that's often just due to the policies that are kind of antique and involved in the pharmaceutical industry. And one should be really aware of that while doing business development. Also, patents in that area require specific use cases. And of course, highly qualified scientists and engineers in the intersection of AI and life science are rather hard to find than easy. And yeah, furthermore, there's little to no standards for doing it right as an investor, I guess, which is also kind of a risk. And for us, the lessons learned in the last months is, that we, in the end, all live in kind of different worlds, especially in a highly specialized domain, like at the intersection of AI and pharma. And your partners must really know your industry well, so you see the same things and speak the same language in the end. With also all the possible seductions and of providing services or somehow start side projects, they always focused on your sweet spot. It's really important. Don't let yourself like distract for short-term money, and keep accelerating and gain traction with your really own USP. And while starting a business is like kind of a self-structuring itself, I guess it's very important to identify the most critical milestones in your path to PyPace, or tackle them and reduce your overall risk kind of. And also in like the last sentence I want to leave here, despite the best planning, you will always face circumstances you didn't calculate at all. So you will have to deal with them without getting too frustrated, I guess. And finally, I really want to do kind of a shout out to Deep Pharma Intelligence and the whole group. They really provide awesome reports and are always supportive when one is facing questions regarding business intelligence. Thank you very much. That's it from my side.
Thank you for that, Chris. I do have a question for you on the topic of finding the right partners I'd be interested in hearing if you have many specific selection criteria in selecting your investors. In particular, we're quite aware of the fact that often investors are more than just a source of funding. It's important to choose investors that actually know what they're doing and know the specific space that you're active within. So I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on that.
Awesome question. Yeah. For us, it was honestly always more about smart money, I guess. If you find investors that are currently already active in the field and have built a whole ecosystem and network around AI and drug discovery, rather just go with them, I guess, even if the conditions might not be as good as from someone who is just offering plain money. That's all I can say regarding that.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And thank you once again for joining us today. A very interesting area of work and a very interesting presentation. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.